Okay? Thank you. Our blue skies are no longer the deep blue of our youth. It is usually crossed with trails that go in directions that are against FAA standard flight plans. I have called the FAA and Homeland Security numerous times, only to be told it's not their jurisdiction. As you can see from the cover of Packet 2, the trails are now being put into media, books, video games, movies, and always behind the weatherman on the news. These trails have become normal to everyone, especially our children. To make sure of this, NASA has implemented a Count the Contrail program in the 1980s, which was distributed to the elementary schools in the United States. In this way, children grew up thinking these trails were normal. There are patents to make different kinds of clouds on the books. The clouds we see today do not fall in the previous classifications. In fact, NASA made new classifications for clouds last year. The United Nations implemented a ban on geoengineering in 2010. 190 nations agreed, except for the United States and the United Kingdom. Congress has had 3 meetings on geoengineering in 2010. The Council on Foreign Relations, which is a private entity, sponsored a meeting on unilateral geoengineering in 2008. The U.S. Senate bill was introduced in 2009 titled Weather Mitigation, Research and Development Policy Authorization Act. A weather mitigation bill has been introduced every year since 2005. In 2009, the United Kingdom Royal Society put forth a study titled Geoengineering the Climate, Science, Governance, and Uncertainty. The Parliamentary Office of Science and Technology had a meeting on geoengineering research in 2009. Just last week, a United Nations climate conference in South Africa on Friday said that in theory, reflecting a small amount of sunlight back into space before it strikes the Earth's surface would have an immediate and dramatic effect. But nobody knows what the side effects would be, and they could unintentionally change weather patterns and rainfall. There continue to be many meetings sponsored by corporations that stand to gain from geoengineering. There was the Asilomar conference in 2009 about strategies, monies, and governance of climate intervention. The meeting consisted of only corporations. There are currently 69 weather modification programs in the United States with no oversight. A weather form can be submitted to NOAA by localities. Texas has a weather modification law, number 301, on the books. The requirement to obtain a license to implement weather modification is pay the license fee and demonstrate to the satisfaction of the department competence in the field of meteorology to engage in weather modification and control activities. Many countries around the world have weather modification programs. There is no control or oversight anywhere. In September of this year, the United Kingdom was going to simulate an artificial volcano by releasing sulfur into the atmosphere through a balloon-type contraption. This is just one experiment that was made public. It was halted due to public reaction. What about the other experiments that the public is unaware of? Weather modification corporations are now a multi-billion-dollar business. They're on the web. One such company is called Weather Modification Incorporated, and its motto is, "Some people see clouds, we see potential." Another company would be justclouds.com. Weather derivatives have turned weather into a tradable commodity since 1997. It is an $8 billion a year business. Monsanto has created aluminum-resistant crops. Unless our plant, why would they have a need for aluminum-resistant crops unless our plants can't grow due to the increase of aluminum in our soil? There are calls once again to globally ban geoengineering at the United Nations Conference in June 2012. This is not enough. Over the last few years, we've seen record rain and snowfalls, droughts, heat waves, tornadoes, and hurricanes just on Long Island alone. All of these weather anomalies mimic the consequences of the geoengineering schemes that are being proposed by governments and corporations. The true question is, who stands to profit by blaming these weather anomalies on global warming? Certainly it is not Long Island. The true cause of climate change is being engineered right above our heads. Thank you for your time.
Anthony DeRosco. Anthony DeRosco.
Hello, my name is Anthony DeRosca, and I want to open up with my favorite bumper sticker states. If you're not pissed off, then you're not paying attention. Yeah. That is true, so true. For those who don't believe, I want to describe what has happened. This, by the way, started about 20 years ago, but today it can't go unnoticed. I would like to ask everyone to just look up, pay attention to the skies in the morning, throughout the day, and into the evening. On certain days, you will notice nothing, but other days you can see these planes that are at least 33,000 feet up in the air. Sometimes you might see more than one of these planes in the sky at once. In 2006, my wife and I noticed 4 or 5 planes flying east to west from our first home in Riverhead. My wife and I see as they were flying that they started the persistent contrails and stopped it when they wanted, because the planes would still be in the same elevation but no persistent contrails. That was just very disturbing. I had called my senators, congressmen, and U.S. Health Department. You will notice that this persistent contrail that goes from one horizon to the other, sometimes they are short, sometimes they are behind clouds. They sometimes create X's, and other times they grid-like patterns. They eventually expand throughout the day by covering this whole sky, which then look like cirrus clouds. Cirrus clouds appear to be white and light gray in color. They form when water vapor undergoes deposition at altitudes of 16,500 feet in temperate regions and above 20,000 feet in tropical regions, which is why they are not cirrus clouds. I know when I was growing up as a kid, there was no such thing, what I call sky graffiti or sky pollution. There are these nanoparticles of aluminum, barium, and strontium falling from the skies because people are finding them extreme high levels in ponds, lakes, and soil. My family has found that we have high aluminum when we were tested for heavy metals. My wife and I had 11. My children had a 10, but the CDC says that the safe range is 0 through 9. When I had the chelation done, which is a process that can go through to remove heavy metals, which is expensive because medical insurance doesn't cover, my numbers went up instead of going down. That's because the aluminum was pulled out of the fatty tissues or the cells where it was stored. What is really scary, could they be dropping anything else upon us? There is a disease called Morgellons, which came out in the 90s, and there is documentation out there that explains that in depth. It's believed that synthetic polymer fibers that are being dropped, which are catalyzed by the metals in the air. A.C. Griffith was an associate within the NSA, and he carried top secret clearance and a cryptographic clearance. In his more recent times, he's associated with CIA operations. On May 14th, 2007, he was interviewed on a program called The Power Hour. He stated that Wright-Patterson Air Force Base was where it has been managed. We know that the people have died over this program, he said, and one of the key people that designed aerosol, barium salt aerosol, was set up by people in the Reagan administration, and he is now sitting in a federal penitentiary. They are still going to him to ask him questions, but yet he is still in prison. That is a little unnerving, isn't it? That the man that has designed the barium salt aerosol is still sitting in prison. The trails, white trails that are not coming out of the engines, it's coming out of aerosol units on the aircraft. The name of the project is Project Cloverleaf, and in the air industry, it's very secretive. Project Cloverleaf was initiated to allow commercial airlines to assist in the releasing of these chemicals into the atmosphere. Airline companies in America have been participating in something called Project Cloverleaf for some years now. In 1998 and 1999, airline employees have been being briefed on it. A few airline employees who were briefed on the Project Cloverleaf were all made to undergo background checks, and before they were briefed on it, they were made to sign on non-disclosure agreements, which basically state that if they were to tell anyone, they would know they would be imprisoned. My final statement, everyone needs to wake up, start paying attention. There is more to the persistent contrails than the public knows. The military has lots of reasons, especially scalar weapons, and they don't want the public to know. So the best way to convince the public nothing out of the ordinary is to tell them that people are conspiracy theorists. As time goes on and it's is going to be harder for them to hide the truth. Thank you very much, and thank you for everybody coming.